In this lecture, you will learn how to program the functionality to allow a registered user deactivate their account. Ultimately, what we want to achieve is a scenario where when the user requests for their account to be deactivated, we are going to program a functionality to reserve this information in the system for at least 14 days. So within the 14 days, if the user attempts to log in again, we are going to log them in automatically. But after 14 days and the user doesn't log in, then we are going to delete the account information permanently from the system. This is similar to what Facebook does. When you request for your account to be deactivated, your account is preserved for 14 days. If you attempt to log in again within that 14 days, you're going to be logged in automatically. So our focus basically on this lecture will be to just program the functionality to allow the user deactivate their account, and then also put in place the other things that we need for the subsequent lecture, where we will be writing the other functionality to auto delete the account permanently or auto log in the user if they log in within the time frame that we specify. All right, I'll go over to my test editor, and right here underneath the change password form, I'm going to paste the code for another form here. Right, so you can see the comment, deactivate account area, and I have the horizontal line there followed by the form. Within the form, we have two input elements and one button. The first input element is the hidden type, which will allow us to send the ID of the user that is requesting to deactivate their account. The second input element is also an hidden type, which will allow us to send a token along to protect our system against cross-site request forgery, and then the button that the user will click on to deactivate their account. So in this button, I have a JavaScript event, which is an on-click event. When the user clicks on the button, we are going to return the JavaScript confirm function, which we ask the user a basic question. Do you really want to deactivate your account? If the user clicks on OK, then the form will be processed. But if the user clicks on cancel, then nothing happens. All right, so I have a name control for the button, delete account BDM. Okay, so let's view this on the browser. And right here we have the button. When you click on this button, the question is being asked, do you really want to deactivate your account? If you click on OK, the form will be processed. Click on cancel, nothing happens. All right, so the next thing that we need to do now is to create another table in our database. So this table basically will allow us to keep track of all accounts that has been deactivated. So we're going to have some feeds to store the ID of the user that has deactivated the account and also the time that the account was deactivated. All right, so you can name this table anything, but I'm just going to name this trash, and then we need 3 columns. First column will be ID. This is going to be the primary key. And it should be auto increment. The length should be 6. Next one will be the user ID. Should also be an integer, so it should be 6. And then the last one should be deleted at. This should be a timestamp. So in this column, we're just going to store the time when this user requested for the account to be deactivated. All right, so this will be the ID of the user, and this will just be the ID for each role inserted in this table. Right, so we have our empty trash table here. We can now go over to our test editor again and begin to code the functionality. All right, so I'm going to create a new PHP file in our partials directory. Let's just name this pass deactivate. And for starters, I'm just going to put a block of code here and walk you through it. All right, so basically we've included the necessary files that we'll be needing. The first one is our database script. Second one is utilities for our functions. And then the last one is the send email.php, because we're going to be sending a notification. All right, in our first if statement, we are checking if the delete button is clicked on, and then we're also checking if there's a token sent along. So if there's a token sent along, we're going to ensure that it's the valid token. If it's not a valid token, we just do what we've been doing previously. We display this error message. Otherwise, if the token is valid, we're going to go ahead to process the form. So the first thing that we need to do here is to actually grab the ID of the user that wants to delete their account. So to get that, we need to create a variable and call this ID. This should be equal to the post of hidden ID, which will be sent along from our form. So if you remember here, we have the hidden ID and the value is set to the ID of the logged in user. All right, so after collecting the ID, in our try catch block, we are now going to actually write all the functionalities that we need. So basically, I've broken down this functionality into 4 simple steps. Step 1, we retrieve the user's information from the database using the ID that we have collected from the form. Step 2, we are going to actually deactivate the account by setting the activated column to a value of 0. Then step 3, we are going to insert the record into the trash table that we just created for this particular user. And then finally, we are going to send notification to the user through email and also display an alert. Okay, so let's start with step 1. So for step 1, the first thing we need to do is to create our query. So we say SQL query should be equal to select star from users, where ID is equal to the placeholder ID. So next we're going to create another variable statement, should be equal to database connection string, and then we want to prepare the query. And then we want to execute this statement. In the execute method, we pass in an array of arguments, and the only argument we need to pass in here will be the ID. That should be equal to the ID variable that we collected from the form. All right, now we need to check if we can retrieve any record from that query. So we're going to say if rows equals statement fetch. All right, so if we are able to retrieve any information from this, we want to do step 2. Otherwise, the ID is invalid. We want to actually destroy all the section variables. So we call our signout function. All right, so for step 2, first of all, we just need to retrieve this user's information because we're going to be sending email to this user. So we need some couple of information like their username. So this is going to be equal to role username. Next one will be the email address. This will be equal to role email. And then the last one we need will be the user ID. So let's just get it again from the database. So this will be equal to role ID. All right, so after getting this information, we're just going to write the query to actually deactivate the account. So we just call this deactivate query, should be equal to an update statement. So this should be update users set activated equal activated. All right, so if we go over to our database again, go to the users table, see that for user demo, activated is set to 1 because the users already confirmed their email address. So now we want to set it to 0. So we're going to say statement. Okay, let me just prepare the query at once in the same line of code. So just grab this and then say db prepare method and then pass in the query. All right, so this will essentially do the same thing. The next thing we need to do is to actually execute it. So say deactivate query, call the execute method on it, and then pass in an array. Right, so the only value for this array will be the activated, and then we want to set it to a value of 0. All right, so if you look at our query, you see that we actually forgot something. We need to specify which user we want to set the activated column to 0. So we'll say where ID should be equal to the ID placeholder. This should be ID, should be equal to user ID. All right, so for this, we can use the number 0 or we use the string literal 0. So anyone is okay. So with this line of code, we'll be able to deactivate the user's account. What we now need to do is to actually check if this query was successful. So we're going to say if deactivate row count. So row count gives us the number of rows that was affected is equal to 1. That means this operation was successful. All right. Otherwise, we are going to display an error message. So we just pass in an error message here. Says could not complete the operation. If this query returns 1, because we're updating just one record, okay? So if it returns 1, we are then going to do step 3, insert record into the deleted users table. So in our case, that table will be trash. All right, so here we're going to say insert record should be equal to db. We're just going to prepare the statement at once. So statement will be insert into trash. we want to insert into user ID column, user underscore ID, and then deleted at. Okay, so the values that we want to insert, so we're going to use placeholder again. This should be ID. And then the next one should be the PHP now function to get the current date and time. All right, so next we're just going to execute that. So we say insert, execute, pass in an array, and the only value we need is going to be the ID. So once again, we're going to check if this operation was successful. So we're going to say if insert record, call the row count function, equal to 1. If this is true, means the operation was successful. Then we want to do step 4. So remember, step 4, we're going to alert the user. Otherwise, if it wasn't successful, we're just going to display another error message. All right, so for step 4, I'm just going to paste in the code here. So the first thing we do for step 4 is to prepare the email body. So in this email, we're referencing the username variable that we retrieved at the top here. Then we say, dear user, you have requested to deactivate your account. Your account information will be kept for 14 days. If you wish to continue using this system, log in within the next 14 days to reactivate your account, or it will be permanently deleted. And then we put a link to the login form. All right, so next we're just going to send the email, and here we're putting a subject, account deactivated. Okay, and then if we're not able to send this, we display an error message. If we're able to send it, we're just going to alert to the user. So our alert message is similar to what we have in the content of the email. All right, so this is basically all that we need to do. We are now set to actually review this code in the browser to see if everything works as intended. Deactivate account, and then we click yes, nothing happens. All right, so I guess you should be able to figure out the reason why nothing is happening right now. Okay, so basically nothing happens here because if we go back to edit profile file, you can see that at the very top we have not included the PHP script to actually deactivate the account. So we're going to put this here and then add the script, pass deactivate.php. All right, so if we go over to the browser again. All right, so we have an error in our SQL statement here, but this is going to be difficult to trace because we have more than one SQL statement and we are using a single try catch block. So let's see how we can fix this. Let's go over to the pass deactivate.php file. So this is our first SQL statement. We have an indication from the error message that the error that we're looking for should be before a closing string, okay, at the second line. So this SQL statement just have one line, so this is not the statement. This has one line, this is not the statement, so this should be the statement because this has two lines. If you look at the query here, you see that it says at line 2, so means the second line of the SQL statement. So if you see here, we have insert into trash, user ID, deleted ads, values. We open this bracket here, but we did not close the bracket, so we're supposed to have another one here to close that bracket. All right, so let's attempt to deactivate the account again. All right, so now we get the error message, could not complete the operation, please try again. We're getting this message because if we go again to our database and do a browse, this account was already deactivated when we ran the first query because two of the SQL statement actually succeeded. It was just the last one that failed. So let's see the trash table. Nothing was added here, but in our users table, this was already deactivated. So we're going to set it again to 1. And then we are going to try to run the code again. All right, so we get a confirmation message. Dear demo, your account information will be kept for 14 days. If you wish to continue using this system, log in within 14 days to reactivate your account, or it will be permanently deleted. All right, so this user's account has been deactivated right now. Right now, they won't be able to log in. So let's try that out. Sign in. So it says, please activate your account. They won't be able to log in at the moment. This is because we have not updated our login script to automatically log them in if they attempt to log in within 14 days. So, but if we come over again to the database, do a browse, you can see that activated is set to 0. And if we come to trash table, we now have one record here with the ID of the user and the time when this account was deactivated. So if I come here, see that this user has an ID of 1 and then the user ID here is 1. All right, so if I log into my email now, I should be able to see that the email that was sent just now. All right, so you see this is the message. It was sent 3 minutes ago. So you have requested to deactivate your account. Your account information will be kept for 14 days. And there we have a link here to allow the user to sign in again. So if we click on that link, it takes us to this login form. In the next lecture, we are then going to program the functionality to automatically log the user in when they attempt to sign in within that 14 days time frame.